Alrighty, hi everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. Good to see some familiar faces. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Natasha Saxena. I am the Firewise Regional Coordinator for Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. We are a nonprofit located in Ventura County, and our mission is to mobilize residents to protect their homes, communities, and environments from catastrophic wildfire. We have many programs, and one that has just gotten a lot of traction in recent year has been our assistance in the Firewise USA program. We decided to host these workshops every third Friday of the month to guide communities along the process and provide a space for these communities to connect with each other. So if you've been here before, thank you for coming back again. And if there are any newcomers, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Next slide, please, Mason. We're going to go over some ground rules. So for the duration of the presentation, you can save your questions for the end for the Q&A section or drop them in the chat. I ask that you remain on mute and turn off your camera if you would not like to be recorded. This, by the way, is going to be recorded and uploaded on our YouTube for you to view later if you'd like. And then during the Q&A section, you can use the raise your hand speak feature or speak and use the chat. You can also be respectful of everybody's time. And if you have any more questions, please go visit venturafiresafe.org and you can check out Chat with a Coordinator to schedule a Firewise office hour with me. Also during the Q&A, as a fair warning, if things go really off track, I may ask Myra to mute you just to bring everybody back on topic in the room. All right, so I've been with the Fire Safe Council for about 2 years now. I studied environmental communication at Cal State Channel Islands and grew up in Santa Clarita, so I'm pretty familiar with the wildfire problem. One of the biggest lessons I learned since joining the team here is that we really have a lot more power than we think when protecting our communities. And according to IBHS, structural and vegetation modifications to your home can reduce your risk up to 75%. So the work you're doing to apply for the Firewise USA program really matters. And in my 2 years with the Fire Safe Council, we went from having only 2 communities in Ventura County being recognized to now having 14 communities with over 40 in the process of applying. So really significant and drastic change in interest in the program. We also have a few others in the Zoom today with us today. So I will pass it off to Mason to introduce herself first.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see some of you again from last month. My name is Mason Thurmond. I'm the new programs manager here at Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. Joined just a couple months ago, so still getting onboarded and getting to know more about our programs. So excited to be here and learn from Natasha, who's our Firewise expert. A few fun announcements that I did want to share with you all. We are moving offices, so if you for any reason ever need to come into our office, we are going to be located on Maple Street in Ventura. It's just about 10 minutes away from our old office, but it's something to be aware of when it comes time to pick up your signs or ask any questions of us in person or for any meetings. Our new office will be posted on our website, the new location, when we're fully moved in. So it's been a fun and busy week. Our staff is also growing. We're currently in the process of hiring 2 new staff, so continuing to grow. There's lots of work to be done, so we're really excited to be bringing some new people on within the next month or so to help us with that. And then I will just provide a little bit of a teaser. We do have more streamlined and new method that some of you may or may not be aware of for getting technical and financial assistance with the Firewise USA program. So Natasha will be speaking a little bit more in detail on what that process looks like, but excited about that development as well. I'll pass it over to Myra.
Thanks, Mason. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. And it looks like I'm admitting Larry into the chat or into the meeting room right now. So that's perfect timing. So good to see everybody. Again, my name is Myra de Leon. I'm the Communications and Outreach Specialist for Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. I'm gonna let Natasha, for the most part, just, run with this meeting, but I do have just some quick, cool announcements about the Fire Safe Council and what's kind of coming up. I believe there is a slide coming up about the Ventura County Fair, and so we will be collaborating with the Ventura County Fire Department to have this really cool interactive booth in August. I believe the fair is running from July 31st through August 11th. And again, we're collaborating on this really interactive booth. And in it, we really want to highlight Firewise communities. And so Natasha is going to talk a little bit, I think, about that, or am I going to go over it in the slide later? Probably. But anyway, I'm in here sort of helping out with tech for the meeting. So I'll just be on here if anybody has questions that might come up that are more communications and outreach specialized. So
awesome. Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah.
And I'll have you announce the VC Fair thing too.
Okay. Perfect.
And then not here with us right now is Max on our team. He's the head of wildfire safety. He might join in the Q&A section towards the end, but it's his birthday today, so please bother him with comments and wish him happy birthday if he does choose to show up. We also have Larry Williams, who I think is in the Zoom with us right now. Larry, if you do have the ability to speak, you're welcome to introduce yourself. I'll give you a few seconds. He might not today, but he probably will join during the Q&A. So Larry is our main contact with the Ventura County Fire Department, and he is just a wealth of information and resources during the Firewise USA process. So we'll definitely be leaning on him. Also,
you caught me with a full mouth. So anyways, yeah, no, I'm on Larry Williams, Ventura County Fire Department. I oversee our community wildfire preparedness unit. And Firewise is one of the programs besides the defensible space and other things that we do.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. Good to have you on board. You can go to the next slide, Mason. Thank you. Okay, so the agenda for today, we have the quick announcement that Myra will be speaking about. Then I'm going to go over Firewise USA 101 for any newcomers. Today's presentation is going to be primarily all about the action plan. So I'm going to give you an overview and also walk you through how you can access that on venturafiresafe.org. We'll go for a 5-minute break, drink some water, relax a bit, then come back at 1:40 for a Q&A for about 20 minutes. And then Mason will close us out with some closing comments. Awesome. All you, Myra.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my notes. So just want to, again, kind of reiterate what I talked about a little earlier. So we're going to be having a booth at the Ventura County Fair from July 31st to August 11th. Max on our team is creating a map of all the Firewise communities at any stage, whether you're already have recognition or whether you are in the process of applying for recognition. We're essentially trying to encourage visitors to the fair to look out at the map, and if they're a resident of Ventura County, to see if their neighborhood is already in the process. Maybe, they didn't know that Firewise was a program already in their neighborhood. And if it wasn't, to learn a little bit about the program and hopefully want to get involved and reach out to either the resident leader of their community or choose to maybe lead an effort in their neighborhood. So if you want to be part of the section that we're going to be displaying Firewise communities at this booth, make sure to email a map boundary of your neighborhood to Natasha, and then that way she can get it over to me. And the best email contact for your community. So for the recognized communities, we plan to share the resident leader's email as the main point of contact, but essentially we're going to list them all, but if you wish to keep that private, then, we can let us know. That way we can have you opt out. But finally, we're also going to be presenting on the stage at the at the fair. So essentially, we're going to be inside the agricultural building. And in that, there's a stage there where a lot of the different booths can present. We're going to be presenting on Saturday, August 3rd. It is the official fire safety day for the fair. And we're going to be on that stage at 2 o'clock. And we're going to be collaborating again with Ventura County Fire Department for that presentation. So if you're going to be out at the fair on August 3rd, please come and support us. We'd be really excited to have any audience that is not just our staff, but literally anybody that can come and join the fair. So that's pretty much my spiel. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back over to Natasha.
Thank you, Myra. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And I hope to see all of you guys at the Ventura County Fair. Okay, so Firewise USA 101. Firewise USA is a national program, and it's run by the NFPA, and applications are reviewed by CAL FIRE. We're a local organization that's assisting folks along the process, but there are quite a few programmatic changes that happen to the Firewise USA program, so I'm learning right alongside with you. The program itself provides a framework for neighborhoods in fire-prone areas to rally around their fire concerns and take action to reduce their risk. Some of the benefits include a safer, more prepared community, and the program is also credited with multiple instances of preventing structure loss. Some of the major benefits that people have been really interested in as of late has been the financial benefits. There could be a potential insurance discount of 5 to 10%. And I just recommend that you contact your insurance agency directly to see if that discount actually applies to you. And then we also have access to Fire Safe Council grants. Something new that I'd like to shout out that Mason teased in her intro is that we now are offering some assistance, either technical, financial, or flyer assistance to folks in various stages of the Firewise USA process. So Myra is going to go ahead and drop that in the chat. And Mason, you can go ahead and click that link, and I'll just give everybody a quick preview. This is one form of assistance, which is requesting flyers for your community, and each community can request up to 200 from us. And Mason, would you just scroll down to the very last slide? So those are some of the community flyers. Yeah, perfect. And then the last slide actually shows you the NFPA's website on their flyers. Whatever stage you're at, you can request a certain amount of flyers for your community. You'll just click that link and order it directly from the NFPA. I recommend doing that as soon as possible, just so you have some flyers available for any members that might be interested. And then you can go back to the presentation, Mason. Thank you. Great. And then you can go to the next slide. So hopefully Myra can drop that chat in the link that lets you know how you can apply for assistance. I'm also offering technical assistance. So if you're trying to create a Google form or a survey for your community to track investment, we can chat about that too. So the 6 major steps to Firewise USA are the first one, and the very most important one, is to form a team, garner interest in your community, and see who's willing to really take action on all of these steps. If you're having trouble with that, the VC Fair will be a great opportunity to get some folks joining in your team. None of these steps necessarily have to go in chronological order, but the only step that you do have to go in chronological order is assessing wildfire risk before going to your action plan. So you have to assess wildfire risk in your community, and you'll be using that risk assessment, looking at page 9 of that risk assessment, to inform your action plan. So those 2 steps go hand in hand. If you missed our workshop on assessing wildfire risk, I recommend you go on venturafiresafe.org and then checking out that workshop that we did. Today's all about step 3, developing an action plan. Then you'll also want to do step 4, report investment and vegetation removed annually. 5, host an annual outreach event, and then finally apply online. You can go to the next slide. So these are just some tips. The first one is to familiarize yourself with the new home hardening science and the 5-foot perimeter. This is best done before you complete the risk assessment. And if you need any help learning some of this information, you can book a wildfire assessment with us. Either me, Mason, Max, or Myra may show up in your at your home when you book us, and then we'll teach you some of the science that you'll be wanting to know for the risk assessment. You can go to the next little quick tip. Thank you. And then for 2, you can start your online application anytime. Just hit save and close and use the drop-down menu there to jump to different sections that you might want to use. Just don't hit submit until you're 100% ready. And then if you get a rejection is just a redirection. It's not a bad thing. The NFP and CAL FIRE really do want you to succeed. They're just looking for progress, effort, and reasonable goals. And at the end, the application just really helps support your community to reduce your wildfire risks. So listen to some of the advice that they say for your application and then try to incorporate that. You can also connect with me to better improve your application if you do get a rejection. Number 4, you'll need to update your action plan and risk assessment every 3 years. Your action plan every 3 years and a risk assessment every 5 years. You can update any of those continuously. These are just the minimum amount of years you'll want to update. And it'll let you know on the portal when it's time to update. You can go to step 5. After recognition, you'll need to report your investment in vegetation removal. Sometimes there's confusion on the deadline of these, so we just got clarification. These should start January in the new year. So for example, if you're applying this year, and then you're gonna track your investment for your renewal next year, you'll want to start reporting January 2025, and then submit your reported investment in the November deadline of 2025. And start tracking early just to make it easier on yourself. And then
Natasha?
Yeah.
Larry? Quick comment on that, because I just had traded emails with Kevin Lindo, who from Cal Fire Battalion Chief, who reviews the applications in southern portion of the state. And as of July 1st, they are having everyone do their action plans starting with 2025 through 2027. But you don't want to lose credit for work you do after you hit your formal application button. So if you do work after that, you can still track it and report it in your first year. So you can go a little bit longer than a year. So if you're doing work this fall and stuff, include it in your stuff for next year's renewal. And that's just a first year extension there. But if you're doing your application, then everything should have been done within at least the 12-month period prior to you submitting your formal application.
Okay, that's great. This is why it's so great to have Larry on the calls, because then he's getting new updates. So it sounds like there's a grace period for the first year, and you can track some of that. But Larry, to my understanding, then after that first year, they'll have to start starting January. Is that right?
That's correct. Then it becomes calendar year. So right now, if you submit, like we just had a couple, we got like 5 in the formal submittal process. So all the work they do now between now and the end of the year, they can report on their 2025 renewal. But then in 2026, they'll start January 2026. And really, if you're reporting by November, you can sort of roll December into it if you do it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And then the last tip I have for you is just to utilize our website or the Ventura County Fire Department website. On ours, we have sample action plans, risk assessments. You can schedule a chat with me, and you can watch past workshops on YouTube. All right, next slide, Mason. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to ask for a little bit of grace here. I kind of ran out of time towards the end of this presentation, so these slides are going to start getting a little bit wordy. But I'd recommend you take a picture of any of the slides that are useful for your three-year action plan to use in the future as well. So the purpose of the 3-year action plan is to prioritize your actions to reduce the risks to your home. And I'm going to emphasize being realistic and achievable. There's a lot of science and recommendations out there. If it seems overwhelming, then just do what's bite-sized for you. And it's broken down year by year to make that a little bit more digestible for your community. You will ideally incorporate the recommendations on page 9 of the risk assessment. CAL FIRE really reviews those 2 documents, and they look at it side by side to see that you're doing that. And then this is also a method to receive funding from VRFSC. So I'll talk about it in a bit, but we basically have a grant for recognized communities, and we can provide funding based on what is written explicitly in your 3-year action plan. So there's 4 categories in your 3-year action plan. The 4 categories are education and outreach, home hardening, defensible space and fuels reduction, and evacuation planning and wildfire preparedness. Those 4 categories are going to be there every year. And ideally, you want to improve what your actions are year by year. And I'll give you an example of that in a bit. You can go to the next slide. So I have a few examples of each section here. And Larry, if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in and chime in. So under education and outreach, I've seen some communities have e-newsletters. Sometimes they try to set up a database for tracking volunteer hours. And this is all just you writing down what you think is achievable for you in that first year, and then the second year and 3rd year. You can also have new homeowner packets. It can have a packet that introduces the Firewise program. You can also have a social media or a website built. Under home hardening, you can include whatever's written in your risk assessment, such as encouraging residents to remove or replace wooden fences attached to the home. That's because wildfire can carry fire directly to a home if you have a wooden gate attached. So removing that wooden gate is very, very key to protecting your home. And then adding a 1/8 metal mesh on vents, cleaning debris from your roof and gutters, painting and caulking anything that's chipping on the side of your homes, or reducing the vegetation, especially mulch in the 5-foot perimeter, and then trimming trees away from your roof. You can go to the next slide. And then under defensible space and fuels reduction, this is where you're going to kind of look at some of that wildland area, the common spaces. It's really great to get an aerial view of your community and see where are the shared spaces. You can also find out who owns some of the land nearby you, some of the wildland near you. You can encourage residents to trim up trees 6 feet. A really great resource to find out more about defensible space is on the Ventura County Fire Department's website. Remove dead vegetation. You can survey how many hazardous tree species are in your community, and then decide whether hosting a chipper event might be really beneficial for your community, or maybe research into goat grazing. And then always working with landowners to see how you can manage the wildland or even the fire department. And then under evacuation planning, a lot of people often just write no evacuation routes, but there's a lot to evacuation planning, and CAL FIRE really loves to see this stuff. So this could be creating a contact list of those with access needs in your community, promoting VC Alert, getting everybody to sign up for VC Alerts. You can request some of those VC Alert flyers that we have available and send that out to your community. Repainting address numbers is a fun one. Preparing go bags, or even having events where you're preparing go bags all together. Distributing disaster guides. And then I'm going to have Myra drop these 2 links in the chat for you. There's something called beacon boxes. It's not for every community, but if your community is kind of confusing to navigate, maybe there is no clear maps or you have outdated maps of your community, beacon boxes are a way where you can actually have a box for any fire departments to access and see the latest updates to your community. If you write that, we can potentially help you fund that effort in your community. And then CERT is an excellent program. I'm likely going to have someone speak on that in future workshops. But that is a program to get a lot of folks in your community understanding of emergency preparedness, and they go through these classes. So that's a great extra one. Thank you, Myra, for dropping this in the chat. You can go to the next slide, Mason. All right, so this is what I was talking about a bit earlier. We have funding available for recognized sites. Right now, we have up to $1,000 available per community. And these are just some of the projects that we've already approved funding for. So on the left here, you'll see this is the Golden Oaks resident leaders, Tina and Fred Drennan. They have recently purchased yard signs for their community. You can see that on the bottom right. So essentially, whenever anybody signs up for a home hardening assessment with our organization, they'll receive that yard sign and place it right in their home. And it's been very encouraging for the community to see that and then sign up for more assessments. Some of the other things have been, we've approved funding to repaint address numbers in another community. We've approved funding for replacing plastic dryer vents to metal dryer vents, offering the mesh roll for those 1/8 or smaller metal mesh stainless steels for 25% of another community. Another community identified some hazardous trees in the area, and we're funding part of their tree trimming projects. And then Matilaha Canyon in Ojai also requested a chipper event, and they were able to find someone who was willing to do a chipper event for $1,000, which is fairly cheap for a chipper event. But they were willing to do that, and they had an early chipping event this year. But these are some of the incredible things you can do, and you really do have to make sure your action plan specifies these so that we can provide that funding, because our grants tie us to that language. All right, and then last slide, Mason. Okay, cool. So you can stop sharing. I'm going to go ahead and share how you all can find this on our website. Okay, so you're going to go to venturafiresafe.org. This is our website designed by Myra, so she's done an incredible job, and some third-party organization. So up on the top here, you're going to see wildfire resiliency programs, resources, and about us. I'm going to highlight this resource tabs for your wildfire quick links. That's where you can get more information on home hardening and defensible space. It's a really fun one. And then if you haven't joined our newsletter yet, definitely check that out as well. So under wildfire resiliency programs, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'm going to jump in really quickly and say that the resources page is getting an overhaul by the end of this month, and it's going to be way easier to get to home hardening and defensible space resources, as well as emergency planning and other Firewise resources on that page. So just letting you know, that's another announcement coming through.
Amazing. Thank you, Myra. And then, so under this wildfire resiliency program, we're going to go all the way down to Firewise USA assistance. And you can learn more about the workshops. You can schedule a chat with me on this page. We're going to go down to required documents. My Wi-Fi is taking a little while to load. All right, there we go. So this is required documents, and this is the 3-year action plan. So you do have to use this exact template, and that way they'll actually be able to see it on the system. So let's read and download. This is what you're going to be using for your community. And just like what we went over, this first page is just explaining what the 3-year action plan is all about. It's giving you a few tips over here. For example, here it says, goals for this plan must include the recommendations located on page 9 of the risk assessment. And then it just gives you some more information right here on how to fill it out. Some helpful links. Like I said, VCFD has defensible space information, and then some time and expanse examples here. That's some more examples of what you can do in your community. But you'll see right over here is some of the categories we went over. So year by year, it says education outreach, home hardening goals, fuel reduction, evacuation planning. And again, year 2 says the exact same thing. If you get stumped on this section right here, please enter a brief description of your community. Ideally, you're going to want to give an overview of each of those categories and how you're tackling that in a general language. And I'm just going to pass it over to, I'm going to stop sharing. Actually, real quick before I stop sharing, back on this page, here is how you can view some sample documents. So one of the sample documents we have is from a community in Thousand Oaks. All right, so this is how this community decided to talk about their 3-year action plan. And I'll point out here, they did something very genius here. They are working towards installing vent screens, and they're just saying for 50% of the units for year 1. You could even say 25% of the units for year 1. That's really helpful to not put so much pressure on you to change everything all at once, but rather go in increments. And then slowly the next year, you'll say 75% and then to 100%. So CAL FIRE loves to see those things. And then I'm going to stop sharing screen. I'm going to ask Larry, if you're in the chat with us, what are some, let me see if Larry's still with us.
I'm here.
You're here? Okay, great. I was going to ask you, what are some common reasons that folks might get rejected on the application according to the 3-year action plan?
Okay, couple items to look at as you're going through it, and then what causes some of the rejections. When you're doing your action plan, make sure your header with your community name and the years of your plan are the correct information. Because if you don't edit that, then that will cause a rejection. Make sure you edit that description of your community box from the sample. So you're talking about your community. You don't have to do a 2-page, dictation of it. Just a summary of your community. When you do your items for each of the 4 categories, if it's anything dealing with vegetation or anything away from the structure itself, other than the attachments, the fences that are attached, if it's vegetation, put it under the defensible space fuel modification. If it's anything that is dealing with the structure itself, doing assessments, retrofitting items, cleaning the roofs, the gutters, then put that under the home hardening spot, because you're sort of breaking the 2 areas out. And then evacuation planning could be anything dealing with evacuation, list of people who may need assistance, ready, set, go, keeping the address numbers because it's evacuation and planning, so for response purposes. When you do your educational section, the first item typically on each year is hold your annual community outreach meeting, because you have to do one each year. On year 1, don't put hold our initial, because you have to do that before you ever submit. And then you're going to now have to do one as you go through each year. So that will cause a rejection if you haven't held your meeting and you're saying, well, we're going to hold our first meeting in year 1. Well, you should have already done that. The other things that cause rejection, recently that's come up, we had the community that in your online application portal with the NFPA, they put the number of dwellings. But in the risk assessment and in part of the 3-year plan discussion, they had a different number. Those numbers have to match. That's an automatic rejection. We had someone do the 3-year plan and not use the proper form. That's a rejection. And just as a tidbit, I just emailed to you, Natasha, and to Max. The latest version is actually November 2023, not the June 2023. There's really not many changes, but at least making sure we're showing we're using the current version that was sent to me. So if you may want to upload that, we have uploaded the current version to our website too. We've got all the same documents and information. But those are really the tidbits of you need to have at least three items each year. You may repeat some of the things, but they want to see that there's an incremental increase. So those goals that you're putting, like the one for home assessments, first, depending on how many dwellings you have in your community. Maybe you start with a low number, 10%, then increase it each year. Keep in mind, they're not really going to do any formal audits and show the records and stuff, because some people report it, some won't. That's up to them. It's all voluntary. But over time, they do show that there's been incremental changes in these communities. So at this point in time, you're just showing what you're attempting to do in educating and encouraging people to do things, because you cannot mandate them to do anything. So the samples that you have up, we're working on some other samples on that. So that's pretty much the things that to look for as you break them out. And as you go through it, that you have the items correctly so it doesn't cause a rejection. Treetop, your example there, they actually got 2 rejections, and I helped them finish it up, but we got them across the board. We had another community that's gotten 2 rejections. We had one that got a rejection because the map was not clear, the boundary map. It doesn't have to be attached in your risk assessment, but it can be in a separate attachment, and it was broken apart 2 areas, and it has to be contiguous. And so unfortunately the person was out of the country, so I went on our mapping system real quick, drew the circle around it, saved it, sent it to the chief with CAL FIRE, and uploaded it. And we just actually found out yesterday that CAL FIRE has approved it. It's pending the NFPA approval. So that's good to see that we're starting, we're getting these across the finish line. But if you get a rejection, Natasha will get an email. I'll get an email on it. We're going to look at it. We may reach out to you, but please reach out to us. We'll help you, guide you through what the items may have been and how you can correct that, so that way we can get it through the finish line to get your community approved.
Thank you, Larry. Those are really, really great. I even noticed some things that I got to update on my slide. Like the home hardening should not have the vegetation involved, but rather the fuels reduction will have the vegetation. So good to know for me as well. Something to know also that we're trying to do internally is originally Larry would do site assessments to help folks along their risk assessments. We're trying to see the capacity within our organization to also offer those for communities. We're just doing some beta testing right now, but hopefully we'll have that ready for anybody going through the process relatively soon.
Yeah, Natasha, on that, what I do have is, if we're dealing with rural type areas with a lot of custom homes, it's a little bit different than where we've got most of the communities are a fixed development of similar models of homes. And so you have they're pretty much all built over a 1 to 2 year, maybe 3-year period and stuff. So I'm seeing consistently the same observations in these older built communities. And so my recommendations are based on that. So when you are going through the process, if you have not got a risk assessment or something from the fire department come out, reach out to us, and I'll share it with you too, Natasha. But I have basically a sample observations for tract type developments and sample recommendations that you could then use that to assist you in your assessment, and also in your developing your 3-year plan.
That's awesome, Larry. Yeah. Sounds good. I'd love to see the report too. All right. So based on time, we are right at the 1:40 mark. So we're a little bit, we're kind of on schedule. I forgot the schedule a little bit, but we're going to go for a 5-minute break and then come back for the Q&A. So during this break, if you have any questions, just drop it in the chat. And then we'll do questions with Max, Larry, and myself, and Mason will read out the chat questions. All right, everyone, see you at 1:45.
I see everyone there just staring at their screens and stuff. For those, this is Larry. There was a question asked in the chat. It was direct to me from Maria. But I replied to her, but I'll just bring it up for the group as a whole. The question was, if you were accepted in 2024, is our update January 25 through November 25, or is it now November 24? If you were approved by NFPA, probably starting around June, they were issuing their recognition in good standing through the end of 2025, which means your first renewal would be 2025. So everything you're doing the rest of this year and all next year, you would report in November 2025. The way to find out if that's correct is look at your recognition certificate, and it'll tell you what year you're good through. And you can also check on the Firewise portal, and it will tell you if your renewal application is due. And then you can continue to work on that throughout the year by posting your time investments, your vegetation removal when you have your community event, because those are the 3 things you need to do each year.
Okay, everyone, back from break. It is 1:45. I think I heard Larry while I was in the kitchen. Maybe you're getting some water, so you might have answered a question. And it looks like Max is in the chat and it's his birthday. So anybody feel free to wish him happy birthday in the chat. All right, so I think Mason is going to be joining us in a second. There we go. Thank you, Mason. She is going to go over some of the chat questions that you all have and read them out loud. And then me, Larry, or Max might answer that. And you can go ahead, Mason.
Sure. Okay. Beth has 2 questions. First, does Firewise track your progress towards the goals? Sorry, there's too many cakes on my screen. I can't read it. The goals in your action plan. Does Firewise track your progress to the goals in the action plan?
So I can take a stab at this, and then Larry might want to chime in. Does Firewise track your goals for the action plan? So essentially, Firewise, there is no regulation or enforcement involved. It is a voluntary program and it's based on an honor system. So when you do have recommendations in your action plan, those are goals. Let's say you don't achieve them, then you're going to adjust your action plan to maybe move that goal further along the year. So essentially, it's based on our system. You report what you can do and have done on the application online portal.
I'll tag on there with some just additional, and that's true. There's no formal audit system for it. It is, again, all voluntary. It's encouragement. They would like to, of course, see that there's been change and movement, and maybe you don't reach the goals you had for each year. First of all, don't submit a new action plan or risk assessment until the 3-year period on the action plan and 5-year on the risk. Because if you do, it's going to trigger a whole new review process with CAL FIRE and NFPA. So stick to, don't make changes to those documents except when they're required. But what you can do, because this is still newer for us here in Ventura County and in the state somewhat, is that when we see these action plans coming up for renewal, that's an opportunity to take a look at what did you accomplish? And maybe in your next action plan, 3-year plan, you make adjustments and speak to it. While we weren't able to reach our full goals, we've adjusted our goals, but we did get improvement in those areas. So still call attention to it. Then what you're going to do to, again, continue to try to get improvement in the community.
Thank you, Larry. And then just to add on that as well, we're here to support you with rolling out that action plan. That's exactly why we're doing our best to apply for as many grants as possible to be able to financially support those who are trying to achieve things that might be hard for a community to achieve their reduction goals. But as long as you write it in your action plan, we're going to do our best to try to support that effort. Perhaps we'll go to the next question, Mason.
Sure. There's another one from Beth. I understand that action plans can't include anything that you are legally required to do, particularly defensible space maintenance. Is this your understanding?
I'll speak to that one because yes, thank you. I probably should have mentioned that. If you put anything in your action plan that is already required to be done by law or regulation each year, that's fine if you put it in the first year, but you can't prorate it and say, well, we're going to do 30% this year, 30% the next year. It's got to be 100%. So my recommendation is don't put items like that, because people, hopefully should already be in place. We have it in the samples. We have language that encourage people to start retrofitting to, even though it's not required for Zone 0, to retrofit to the recommendations from CAL FIRE or the local fire department. Encourage people to reduce their fuels in the 30 to 50 foot, 30 to the 30 to 100-foot zone, or the 5 to 30-foot zone, beyond what's already required. So you're not saying that you're meeting the required, you're going beyond what the minimum is. That's the key there.
Thanks, Larry.
Also for the home hardening, for the homes that were built prior to the codes that require it for new homes, you're technically exempt under state code from having to make those changes. So everything you do is improvement. If you were built after the codes, basically after 2010, then you're required to maintain that code that you're built under. There are some you should check with your local building departments, because like in Ventura County, in the unincorporated area, if you add on to the structure or you make major changes to the structure itself, remodeling, but maybe not adding on, you are now subject under some criteria to actually start doing mandatory retrofits. Nothing for you to include in your action plans, but just as a side note, to be aware that people, if they're going to start working on the structure, they should also check to see, do they need any type of permits or clearances to do that work.
Larry, quick question on that. So based on Beth's question, she said she understands that you can include anything that you're legally required to do. So I had listed on my example to skirt up trees 6 feet up, or limb trees 6 feet up. Since that's already in the defensible space requirement, is that something that they should ideally not mention in their action plan? Or could they just, if they're noticing that a lot of communities do have that defensible space problem, can they still mention that in their action plan?
Yeah, they could, sure, they can. In fact, some of the language you can do each year is ensure that trees are lived up to 6-foot requirements, and so that way you're calling attention to it. You're making people aware of what the actual regulations are on their properties, and those that don't get inspections maybe not be aware of it. But you're not going to put a percentage on it. You're doing a continuation of a reminder. You're reminding people each year of the defensible space laws to make sure they're maintaining their vegetation free of dead material, dying material. So that's how you can address the regulations annually without triggering got to do it all the first year, because it is year round and it's ongoing for life.
Okay, good to know, good to know. Yeah, I recommend anybody that notices, once you're familiar with the defensible space requirements, if you notice anything that you might be behind on, just writing that out specifically and calling that out. That way, if we can get grant funding to support you, you have that language written out as one of your risks. But like Larry said, don't involve any percentages on that. And then, are there any other questions in the chat, Mason? I don't think so.
Yes, there are 2 questions that I did go ahead and answer with links, but I'm happy to just walk through that link. So one from Joe and then one from Nancy, both about the requirements for grass, shrubs, and trees, particularly obviously in zones 1 and 2. So Larry, this is the most up-to-date thing I found online. It says October 21. It is, here's the beginning of the document, guideline 418. So when we scroll down, it has a ton of information. It has all the technical stuff. So if you're looking for technical jargon, this is the one I usually am looking at. So we have a table here that details, again, this is in zones 1 and 2. exactly what the specifications of those plants should be. So for a grouping of shrubs, they can be 4 feet tall and they shouldn't exceed 50 square feet. And then it even has specifications on the percentage of the slope. As we know, fire travels faster up slope, especially as slope percentage increases. So if you have an over 40% slope, you actually shouldn't have groupings of shrubs on that slope. So anyway, if you want to take a look at that, grass falls under ground cover here. So it can be 6 inches.
Mason,
Larry?
you actually, that's outdated. It's been replaced.
Okay, will you drop the link in the chat, because this is the
because
one
we
that pops
took
up.
we took the table out of there, but we updated the guideline. The guide document's more of a reference guide. The actual regulatory document for us is our standard 515. All our documents are available on our public website, bcfd.org, and you'll go to the fire hazard reduction page tab under fire prevention. If if you give me a second,
I think I found it. I'll put it in there. 515.
Yeah, 515 is the regulatory. Now that's that went in effect in April of 2019. And so anything that's installed on or after that needs to comply with that. For existing built environment, we're wanting people to start retrofitting to come into reasonable compliance with that. And we are surveying HOA, large common areas, open space parcels, and we're actually requiring them to start retrofitting to get down into that reasonable compliance, because we have a lot of old overgrown vegetation that is a fire hazard and does not comply with state minimum defensible space. So that's a separate project we're working on countywide.
Right. So here in the updated document, you see there's breakouts between zones 1 and 2 as well.
Right, and we talk about ground cover, mosaic, or grouping of higher ground cover. So as you can see, up to 6 inches, you can have a solid blanket of it, of the appropriate material product. When you start getting above 6 inches, then there's limitations for groupings, and there's limitations for single shrubs. For it, you can't group, if you cannot group shrubs in over 12 inches tall in zone 1. If you're going to group them, you either have to do single shrubs or you have to keep smaller shrubs to the 12 inches with the square footages. If you want to group shrubs in zone 2, then you have some limitations there, and we take into account the slopes for that. Trees is a huge item because you cannot put new trees in to where the canopy at full maturity is within 10 feet of the building, and that's a vertical to sky. And this table does not talk about zone 0. That's further up in its own section on what's allowed and not allowed in zone 0 for all new installations, and then what we're recommending people do for existing installations to meet that criteria. Go down a little bit further there. Keep going.
Okay, here we are.
Right there. Here's the criteria. So basically, we talk about what it is, and then when you go into that page 5 there, you'll see the requirements and allowable items for zone 0. Again, this is all for all new installations, but we highly recommend people do this for existing. Like firewood, item K, that's applicable to anyone irregardless. You can't have firewood in zone 0. It's got to be that's under state regulations. It's called out differently. That's artificial grass. That's something from that we've been put in place. We don't want to see it within 5 feet. But again, if you have questions on this, feel free to email us, contact us. We'll try to help you through it as you go through it.
Okay. One last question from Lynn. Okay,
I think I read that question.
you got it?
Yeah. So basically, Lynn is wondering, she's already done some work with her HOA, and they're wondering if they can do any reimbursements for past expenditures. So this is according to the grants that we do have available for communities that are already recognized. We, at this time, do not allow for any reimbursements. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat for the assistance. And you can do it at any stage of the Firewise process. I'm just going to share my screen very quickly to show you what this looks like. Let's see. This is the assistance form. You'll enter your name, your email address, your Firewise site. And then if you are recognized, and I'll be able to tell if you're recognized because I have access to the portal, you can select this thing right here that says funding to carry out aspects of your 3-year action plan. And it says in all caps right here, no reimbursements to Firewise leaders. So this is prior to any projects. And it's also mainly for minor services. And then you can research and look into it with your community as well. And then give us about 1 to 2 business weeks to respond to your request. Any other questions before we close off? It's now 2 p.m.
I think there was one more question that came in through the chat last minute.
Perfect.
Yeah, for Larry, do the
Oh, right.
jurisdictional fire stations enforce standard 515?
They've all been made aware of it. So again, when it first came out, we weren't requiring landscape plans for all new installations and stuff. As of basically November 1st, 2021, we now require landscape plans, and we have them recorded covenant on the deed. So there should be maintaining that. There's certain items that the stations that are part of the standard that they do look at, like limbing up trees off the roof, trees away from chimney. There's certain things because those were already requirements of the state that are rolled into our standard that are part of the existing defensible space regulations that get enforced. So yes, they do look at portions of that. They're not going to go enforce zone 0 on parcels because that's not in effect for the existing built environment. That's where using the fire safe councils, using the Firewise communities, educating people, encouraging them to start looking at that and start making changes. Zone 0 still being looked at, the regulations by the state. They have not formally issued those yet, but when they do, there's supposed to be a mandatory retrofit period. We don't know if it's going to be the 1 year, what the law currently says, or whether they're going to extend that out to a 3-year period. There's a Senate bill proposing that. So there's a lot of change going on at the state level right now over this next 30 to 45 days with defensible space laws and regulations and fire zone mapping. So stay tuned. We're still trying to weed through it and figure out what's going on and what's happening.
All right, everyone. Well, I'm just going to say some takeaways. You can access this whole session on YouTube later on this week or next week. Myra will upload that. For the VC Fair, don't forget to submit your flyers or your map. And then now you have access to apply for assistance or any flyers, and that's located in the chat. It's not live on our website yet, so if you missed that link, go ahead and email me and I'll send that to you. And then I'll pass it off to Mason for any closing comments.
I think you covered most of it, Natasha. I hope that this was helpful for all of you all. Thank you for asking questions. I think that's where the meat of this comes from. And I guess it's just to send you all off. Hopefully the point has come across that the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council is here to help. We're Firewise as a program is still being really heavily supported by CAL FIRE, so there's funding still flowing through, and we want to make sure that that gets to you, whether that is financial assistance or in the form of technical assistance. That form Please explore it and share it, you know, with other folks within your own Firewise community. There's a lot in there that you can ask for, not just funding. It can be help with your map. It can be, again, like the flyers that Natasha was talking about. It can be an A-frame for your event if you want a little help event planning. We are here for you, and we want to see you succeed as well. So I guess with that, enjoy your weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month or hearing from you. Maybe we'll see you at the fair. There will be giveaways, raffles, and fun stuff in addition to lots of educational resources.
Okay, cool.
Thank
Bye,
you.